Hello again, I'm Ian Dooley and welcome to the episode 10 of Let's Get Fiscal, the official podcast of the Australian Employment Party. I'm here again this week with Tim Jones.
Hello again.
And before we get started, as usual, a little bit of housekeeping. Our website is australianemploymentparty.org. You can go there and click to join and be a member. We're getting steadily towards our registration target of 500, so come and check out the policies, and if they align with what you think, then give us a go and sign up. You can also tweet at Ian Dooley, that's IAINDOOLEY, on Twitter, and at FourthLeft2 to get to Tim. Use the hashtag OzMMT, that's OZMMT. And you can also go onto Facebook and search Australian Employment Party to sign up to our Facebook group if you want to get a feel for who we are and what we do before you sign up to be a member. Thanks for joining me again this week, Tim.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, and it's a bit of a regular thing for us, which is great. And I think we're getting comfortable. We had a little bit of a discussion earlier on. I think we talked about, like, this week has been particularly awful, I think, internationally, politically, and I don't know. Personally, I'm just doing fine. How are you going?
I am good, personally. There's a lot of turmoil, a lot of trouble for a lot of people in a lot of places.
Oh, and, so bad.
But my world, thankfully, is in far less turmoil than that. So all I can do is give thanks and focus on trying to do what I can to improve things, which, from yours and my perspective, is improving the life, the economy of Australia through a program of full employment.
Well, that's right, and look, we've talked for ages just before this recording to try to nut things out. I think we didn't get too heated, but I did want to throw a few things at you about how we can implement a job guarantee. You happy with that?
Yeah. What does a job guarantee really look like? People ask me this quite a bit, so let's have it out. Let's talk about it.
Sure, and of course, it's a big societal change, and what we're talking about sounds. Once people start realising about the nature of modern monetary theory, is that it actually exposes where money comes from, where taxes go to, the fact that taxes don't pay for things, and all this sort of stuff. It sounds a little bit out there. So what I wanted to do with this particular talk was for us to be able to say, okay, how can we help our society by offering a job guarantee which operates counter-cyclically between private booms, so that our society gets better at being able to just stabilise itself and people aren't running around waving their arms in the air saying the world's going to end. Do you know what I mean? It's a big deal, and I don't take it lightly.
There's a lot of doom and gloom in the world at the moment, and it's not a coincidence that we're at the tail end of 40 years of neoliberalism, I think.
Tail end. Let's make it the tail end, huh?
I'm saying that very self-assuredly. It's the tail end.
Good.
Yeah, Tim, so what you've brought up there are like the attributes of a job guarantee. The most important one you're talking about there is being counter-cyclical. What does that mean? When private sector upswings are in place, everyone wants to invest, investment increases, spending increases, everyone wants to get in on the upswing, and people feel good, there's good consumer sentiment, and people have more money, so they spend more. What happens in a downturn is that everyone gets spooked, layoffs occur, spending decreases, further layoffs occur, and so that's the pro-cyclical behaviour of the private sector. So the government really needs to spend counter-cyclically, meaning that in a downturn the government increases spending, and in an upswing the government decreases spending. The other two key points about a job guarantee are that it is federally funded but locally administrated. So we don't have a centrally planned public works program. It's not the same as public works. It's more like community programs, but that it's not a grant system. So it fits the jobs to the people, not the people to the jobs. You turn up at the job guarantee office, you're hired on the spot, and then it fits a job to your needs, rather than saying, we only have places for this many people who can do what you can do. So those are the main points of the job guarantee.
Okay, and of course, what I think I was definitely accosting you before about how this thing would be realised, because if we actually, say we were running government all of a sudden, like suddenly we lost all these, how would you call it, Luddites that are currently being elected back into Parliament now, where they're killing renewable energy, they don't care about climate, they're killing CSIRO and all that sort of thing. So that's what we're up against. We're up against a very primitive bunch of people who decided, okay, the 19th century was just fine by us. Now, what I wanted to talk about was that how a job guarantee would actually work. Like, I would live in a small community in the Manning River, like it's about 3 hours north of Sydney. You've got people here, a lot of people. It's one of the, there aren't many jobs around here, but what I was thinking of was that if you have a cycle of boom and bust, then you would be able to foresee that there are community needs and community projects that could be easily foreseen and planned by people, so that as soon as the bust comes, then these things would be done for the community. Like there's a certain number of jobs, and people wonder how, you could possibly absorb, say, 2 million people into these job guarantees.
Yeah, so firstly, I'd just like to say there is a precedent of 2 million people being absorbed into a job guarantee-like program, which was the Jefes program in Argentina. I know that
in South America,
it's not immediately applicable to people in Australia because it's literally foreign, but it has worked before, and that's the closest thing we have in modern times to a job guarantee program. But
that's right, and I counted you earlier, and this is going to be a slightly more confrontational video. Is that with the stimulus that Wayne Swan instituted with the GFC was the pink bats thing, and then of course a certain number of people were killed. And that was blamed on the Labor government. It was all over blamed because the same number of people were being killed anyway, apparently, according to statistics. But so that what they wanted to do was to bring in a job stimulus, so that people could, so that the money would go into the community and some good would be done. So it's sort of there are similarities, and I'm only bringing this up because this is something that people can relate to, and it sounds like a bad example, but it actually worked really well.
Yeah. So first of all, it did work really well. The regrettable deaths that occurred on those work sites were, first of all, not the responsibility of the federal government that came up with and designed the program. Work safety is a state government issue. So I don't really know why Kevin Rudd came out and accepted responsibility for this. I don't think he should.
It was crazy. I know what's wrong. It's a Labor Party. I don't know what they do.
Right. Second of all, to say that an increased incidence of injury is a reason to stop working is pretty crazy. Like, I think that saying...
Yeah, I'm not going there. There. I'm just saying about if we had pre-planned these cyclical downturns, which you can't foresee, the GFC or Spanish Inquisition for that matter, but you can plan for a downturn if you're having a boom, can't you?
Yeah, so I think what you're getting at is that perhaps the Pink Bat scheme was put into place quite hastily because they didn't see it coming, and they didn't have any infrastructure pre-existing that would allow people to safely enter into that kind of work environment. It was a bit of a scramble.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the other big thing about that scheme that is different from a job guarantee is that it provided the funding, but the people who were doing the work was still in part of the private sector. So it was not modern monetary theory job guarantee. It was more like Keynesian pump priming. I know the difference may seem academic, but it is it's incredibly vital to note that difference, because the people running the businesses that were taking advantage of the funding and employing the workers were still private sector employers. So they were driven by profit. They were doing things faster than they had to. It was a gold rush mentality. Opportunistic, jumping on the bandwagon. These are all elements that were key in the risk factors of that scheme. And those things...
And things that we could avoid with the job
They
guarantee
wouldn't be,
and
they
implementation.
just wouldn't be an issue. They wouldn't be an
No.
issue because it's not for profit run by the private sector. It's completely different from an administrative
That's
perspective.
right. Look, I'll jump in here again because I've had a few comments to say, look, I need to be more assertive, and here I go. You did mention about a pre-approved job guarantee projects, right? So that when you're having a boom, you have a certain number of public servants or people in the community or who are consulting with public servants, is that these are things that we need done when we've got time. And when we have time is between booms, isn't it?
Right. So there are a couple of options. Firstly, the government can sit down and have a think about it, which wouldn't be too hard, and come up with a few different things that would be likely a framework, if you will, of the types of projects that would be useful. And those might be things like arts fairs, concerts, public festivals, similar to like the Melbourne Comedy Festival, the citywide type
beautification
of
projects.
Beautification, right? So you have all these things. But in addition to that, we want it to be very consultative because each community is going to be different. There's not a cookie cutter approach to communities in Australia. All communities have their different flavours. That's why it's so great to live in this country. You travel between different communities and you get a different vibe and everything. So, you could also just have what essentially amounts to a glorified suggestion box. It could be online, email, popping into the office every now and again, for people to come up with ideas constantly, all the time. People are always having ideas.
It's doable nowadays, isn't it? It's really easy to do nowadays.
The Job Guarantee Suggestion app for your community, the Job Guarantee Suggestion website, an email, send an email and tweet suggestions, whatever. So people could constantly be ticking over. Now, some of those projects will be unsuitable for a job guarantee because a job guarantee has to be counter-cyclical. You can't engage in major public works as part of a job guarantee program. Major public works have a problem that they require specific skills. So it's difficult to fit the jobs to the people. Major public works have a problem in that they're not counter-cyclical. If you get halfway through building a bridge and then all of a sudden the boom, the private sector recovers and they need all the workers back, you got half a bridge, right? So there's certain factors that would need to be taken into account when deciding what projects were suitable. But once those were filtered...
But there still could be things like why wouldn't you build a Snow River scheme between cycles? Do you know what I mean? There's a whole heap of things. You could still do it. You could still do the big schemes, couldn't you?
Well, I think that the government can do big schemes, and it's kind of separate to a job guarantee. That the government should be spending on major public infrastructure. We don't need privatisation. There's no benefit to privatisation. So that's sort of a different basket of policy. Like we hold in our policy framework that no natural monopoly should be privatised. So any infrastructure project you can possibly imagine, basically we hold that should be fully funded by the government and owned as an asset of the government. It should not be sold off.
Okay, look, I've got to interrupt you because that's my role, I think, this podcast. Now, I think my own personal view is that, say, if you wanted high-speed rail, you'd do it between cycles, right? If you wanted a second Sydney airport, you'd do it between cycles. If you wanted parks and gardens, you'd do it between cycles. And that's what I'm thinking. I think we're talking about, proposed projects, plausible projects, and then how to implement them. And then I also talk to you about the fact that when I'm poking my pen at you at the moment, you probably can't see.
No, I can't see.
Is that? Here we go. I'm poking my pen. Is that with these big projects that once we go through a number of booms and busts, then our society would become accustomed to the job guarantee. It's not a parachute, it's just a soft landing for the population, so that what we can have is a population that understands that economics will provide booms and busts, and the busts don't have to break people's lives.
Right. So to address the issue of the major public works thing, the major public works are unsuitable for job guarantee programs. Major public works are good for governments to engage in. And we should definitely be spending money on airports and superfast rail and infrastructure and all of the NBN, fiber to the home, get it done, right? But those aren't suitable for job because, I'll tell you why, they require really specialized skills. And if you happen to not have those skills available, then it becomes untenable to run those projects. And either you just sit there, maybe you have half an airport sitting there for 4 years while you struggle to get the skills to finish that job. Now that might happen anyway. Like the government shouldn't be competing too much with the private sector for labour. But a job guarantee has, as designed by modern monetary theory economists, job guarantees have these specific attributes that make major public works unsuitable as job guarantee projects. It's much more about highly localized, community proposed, federally funded but locally administrated, inclusive, fitting jobs to the people, not people to the jobs. Those are all the factors that make a job guarantee work. If you include in that things like building a second airport, that it doesn't work. The design breaks down.
Well, I mean, I think it's purely about planning, isn't it? It's about saying like maybe those examples weren't ideal, but there are things that can be done by that need a lot of people that would be ideal for a counter-cyclical job.
Yeah, there are tons of things.
Cycle.
Yeah, tons of things. So there are
and that's all we're talking about. Because when people, and this is what I've said to you before, Ian, and this is I think the purpose of me doing this, like pointing my pen at you type stuff, is that what we're proposing is radical compared to what most people think about. So that if we're going to say that this is what we want to do, then we have to be able to say to the media and any cynic that comes along, yes, of course, and we've thought about it already. This is what we think, and this is how we're going to deal with it. And this is my big fear, because none of us want to be labelled as a Pollyanna in this situation, do we?
No, and I didn't even know what being a Pollyanna was before you told me before.
Yeah, I'm glad I can help.
Also, I didn't even know what the words blithe and glib meant, so it's good that you brought those up.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
they were good ones.
I don't want to be on the 7:30 report and someone refers to me as glib, and I'm like, thank you very much.
Absolutely, you've got more to come. Don't you worry.
So I think that what the key parts about this is that you think about those parameters, start from the parameters, and then imagine the types of things that people might be able to do, and also think about the fact that we don't want to be prescriptive in saying that throughout the lifetime of a job guarantee proposal, which could be 1,000 years, that the types of things people do in a downturn will be identical. They're going to change from year to year. They'll change, intergenerationally. They'll change because certain types of work will become obsolete. Automation creates obsolescence, and we need to be able to cope with that. So, I think that one thing that makes this really great is the idea, and which you were kind of coming to, which is that in the boom times, we collectively come up with ideas of things we will do in a down cycle. And that needs to come from the community. People constantly have great suggestions, ideas for things that they would like to see happen. I would love to see a carnival in town. I would love to see a 6-week live music bonanza where we get Australian musicians to come in and really make this town a fun place to be. I would like to see...
Well, it could make life a lot more fun, couldn't it?
I would like to see 10,000 trees planted on that hill where there's erosion. I would like to see all of the plant life regenerated along a particular riverbank that suffered from salination. All of these types of things could be proposed by the community. And when it comes to, you would have an administrator in the community who's trained in what makes a good job guarantee or not.
And who is also a community leader.
Community leaders, yes. They have to be part of the communities. This is not punishment. I know you talked a lot about the experience of turning up to a Centrelink office, which is miserable. It's terrible. And the Centrelink staff, they can really often, they kind of get the impression that they are the provider of this generous handout that, this lazy, unemployed people turn. Right, that's the attitude that people have to deal with when they go into traditional kind of the job networks and stuff like that. That's not what we're going for. What we're going for is positive, inclusive, life-affirming, enjoyable work that produces value in a downturn and then allows people to go about pursuing their interests as they see fit. And it's not the role of the job guarantee administrator to be, wagging their finger. I'm wagging my finger at the camera now. Wagging their finger at the people who come in ready and willing to work. Because when people turn up ready and willing to work, you don't give them a resume training. You don't give them a course that tells them how to do a job interview. You give them a fucking job, right? So that's it.
All right, you said it. All right, look, we're going to have to wind up, but I do want to just summarise a little bit and say, look, we know how the magnitude of what we're saying. We are also thinking about how it can be done, and we understand it's a huge difference to what we're facing at the moment. But honestly, the difference between the 18th century and the 19th century was pretty big. 19th to the 20th, and hopefully the 21st century can start sometime. And I personally want our society to be happier and more productive, more creative for the people who only live a certain amount of time in it to be good and worthwhile. So that's what we're about. How do you want to finish?
I think that, in the spirit of what we've discussed, I would like to invite everyone listening to this to come along to the Facebook group. Search Australian Employment Party on Facebook. There's a link in the pinned post to a forum. Now, the forum is where I want all these types of discussions to happen, and I want everyone to get involved. So let's have this discussion, the nitty-gritty about what a job guarantee is and is not. And I want to hear people's experiences of being unemployed, of dealing with Centrelink, all that type of stuff, because we need to get these stories happening so that we can form some concrete policy. And, as you say, deal with the critics. So let's make that happen.
Sure. And we'll be back next week.
Great. Thanks a lot, Tim. I'll see you next week.
Thanks again.
Okay,
Bye-bye.